This is Fort Gibson Lake at the Taylor Ferry Marina. Owner Arif Nakri gives warnings to this group before they take his pontoon boat out on the water.
If you see a big mass of algae or anything, stay away from it and get out of there.
Very close to this marina is the Taylor Ferry North Beach. A sign posted says the beach is closed and that contact with the water in this area is highly discouraged.
Swimming, you pretty much beach is closed, so you cannot swim over there. You cannot go to the beach side anywhere on that side. If you're going out, I would stay on the north side.
At Keystone State Park, kids are jumping into the lake, having fun while cooling off from 100+ degree heat. Their parents say they didn't notice the posted sign which reads, "Harmful algae is present. Lake may be unsafe for people and pets. Contact with the water is discouraged. Do not drink untreated lake water. Keep pets and livestock away."
But like I said, we didn't know. If not, we'd have stayed at the motel and swim in the pool.
But not me.
The discovery of certain toxic blue-green algae, which is now being discovered at other Oklahoma lakes, was first confirmed at Grand Lake before the 4th of July weekend. The lab at the Grand River Dam Authority located at the lake looked at a sample identified as blue-green algae and sent the sample onto a laboratory in Florida. The Florida lab determined this particular blue-green algae contained the toxin microcystins.
Once we determined that it was blue-green algae and that it was a harmful species of blue-green algae, we set up 8 permanent sampling sites to monitor, give us a snapshot of what's going on throughout the lake.
Sam Ziara is a fisheries and wildlife biologist for the Grand River Dam Authority. Every day since the discovery, he has been boating to the test site coves on Grand Lake to take samples and bring them back to lab specialist Roger Simmons. Simmons now has a kit to run the same tests that the lab in Florida first ran.
But as far as I know, this is the first time that we've got a kit in to run them here on Grand Lake, to run this test.
So we've never really had this problem?
No, we've never had this problem that I know of.
It's pretty serious.
It is serious.
Are you worried?
Yes, let's say I'm deeply concerned.
Ziara and lab techs wear gloves and take great caution to avoid contact with suspicious water samples. But Ziara says that wasn't the case at first.
Some of us, when we first started dealing with this, we didn't have gloves on. I think anybody that's gone out and got samples can verify that there was some tingling sensation involved in her hands.
Dr. Tony Clyde of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is considered one of the leading experts in Oklahoma on blue-green algae.
But it is basically, it's a skin irritant, and people will have varying degrees of reactions to it. It's like poison ivy in a way, is that some people are not really that allergic to poison ivy, some are very allergic to poison ivy. And so the range of rashes and skin irritation that you get from any contact with water will vary greatly, particularly the larger the population. So when you have 5,000 people at a lake and not everyone gets itchy skin or an upper respiratory illness or diarrhea or nausea, it's because they may have a stronger, they just may have a stronger immune system, or they're not as allergic to those particular compounds that the algae produce.
He says more toxic strains of blue-green algae like the one found in Grand Lake could have more harmful effects, particularly when it comes to pets and children who, while swimming in the lake, will consume some lake water just as adults do.
The amount of toxin that they would consume in that same half pint of water that an adult would consume is related to their body weight. It overwhelms their system and can cause, at the worst, can cause issues with their nervous system and their livers.
But at the same time, he says this.
The liver and the nervous system impacts are very rare, and there are some algae that produce multiple compounds, but human illnesses or even human deaths have never been attributed to those algae.
Back at the GRDA lab, Roger Simmons shows me the procedures he uses to test all the daily water samples.
This is actually a negative reading. This is what would be less than 0.5 parts per billion. And then this is the actual test of Ketchum Cove. This is 3 parts per billion, and this is the actual test from Ketchum Cove.
The World Health Organization has 1 parts per billionth as microcystin level as a threshold. Anything that and above, I believe, is something to be concerned about.
And where are we?
I think what's the highest we've had, Roger?
20 parts per billion.
That's high.
Unaware of who Ziara was at the time, we actually videotaped him taking samples from Woodard Cove on the lake. We went there to meet State Representative Doug Cox, who represents the Grand Lake area. He lives right on the lake and is an emergency room doctor. In the days since the discovery of the harmful blue-green algae, he says he's been seeing patients. He says no one has presented with blue-green algae-related symptoms.
And our case mix and diagnosis really have been no different this year than any other year. I did have one lady with an irritated eye with some drainage that I thought might be due to algae. I cultured it, and as it turned out, it was a staph infection not related to the blue-green algae.
Cox says he hasn't heeded the warning to avoid all contact with the water.
I would say you just need to use common sense. I mean, common sense tells most of us, hey, you don't swim in stagnant water. And as you can see from looking out at the lake here, it's a nice cove, it's deep water, you don't see any slime. This is an area where I would swim. I was in the water right here at this dock with my grandkids and family all through the 4th of July weekend, tubing, using those jet skis that you see there. Had a great weekend.
So it's your belief that the warnings were really overblown?
They have a duty to get out the word to the public that the blue-green algae is here and that you should use caution and swim at your own risk. But you know, all Oklahoma lakes are swim at your own risk. We don't have lifeguards here. I mean, I worry much more about a drowning than I do someone getting seriously ill from blue-green algae. I think the problem was they went a little overboard with their warning, almost to the point of panic, you know, saying, rather than saying stay out of contaminated areas, stay out of the moss, stay out of the slime, they said don't have contact with the water.
Chuck Perry is the president of the Grand Lake Association. Representative Cox invited Perry to come talk with me. So you purposely dove in areas where they said there was blue-green algae?
I had eight other people with me. There were 10 of us total on my boat. We swam in every cove that was reported to have blue-green algae and did it on purpose, you know, and I feel fine, you know, and all my friends feel fine, and none of them were reluctant.
Would you take children or your pet into this water?
And my Rottweiler did get, like he does, chest deep, lapping up water this past weekend. My grandkids, I have 2, and they had a great time swimming.
Would you swim in any part of this lake right now?
Not right now.
There are no warnings about eating fish caught in the lake, but in Ziara's opinion, he wouldn't. During the time I spent with Ziara on the lake taking samples and in the lab, I continually heard this.
Where all the islands are.
I will say, since I met you in the last hour and since we sat down to do this interview, I have heard you cough continually. Is it because of the blue-green algae?
I'm hoping it's not from the sampling, but I don't know.
What are your suspicions?
I don't know yet. All I know is when this stuff started kicking off and I went out sampling, I started coughing.
Will the toxic strain of blue-green algae become a reoccurring problem, or was this summer just the perfect storm? A rare blending of extreme heat that began earlier than usual, no rain, and the high number of nutrients in the water.
We had kind of the perfect storm this year at Grand Lake, and the fact that we had a lot of nutrients in the water, phosphorus and nitrogen, and most of them actually come down from Kansas through the Kansas fields that are fertilized in Kansas, as well as fertilizer from local farms and local golf courses and even lakefront homes fertilizing their yard.
The blue-green algae floating on the surface of the water can be avoided, but Ziara, who is testing for it and finding it in the depths of the water, says people need to be aware of what is to come. Right now the algae is still blooming.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens after it stops blooming?
When it dies off in mass, those cells that are dying are going to release microcystin inside the cells. And that's when we're going to have our highest peak of microcystin toxicity.
So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yes.
And he says the public should know they have been warned.
Did you go in the water?